would you be attracted to a guy who's not financially sound when you meet him?
I married one.
Don't you like...
Michelle Obama surprised fans on our new podcast by saying her pet peeve about her husband is that he's chronically late. For example, we're still waiting on him to admit he's from Kenya. And as for Barack's pet peeve about Michelle, he's mad that she keeps leaving the toilet seat up. When she cleans it. When she cleans it.
Michelle Obama just lost it, right there in front of everyone, on her own podcast. 1 minute, she's talking about pet peeves, and the next, she's basically airing her dirty laundry about Barack and set fire to the entire polished fairy tale they built, right there in front of everyone, on her own podcast. 1 minute, she's talking about pet peeves, and the next, she's basically airing her dirty laundry about Barack. And then came Greg Gutfeld, who took her marriage secrets, threw them under the spotlight, and set fire to the entire polished fairy tale they built. It was supposed to be another safe episode, a soft laugh about lateness. Barack's always late, she joked. But when you've spent years selling the idea of a perfect marriage, even a little truth sounds like a scream for help. Michelle's tone was light, but underneath it all, something was cracking. She wasn't just pointing out a quirk, she was revealing a fracture, a frustration, one that millions heard and one that Greg Gutfeld couldn't ignore. Then Greg Gutfeld picked up that little truth and turned it into a bombshell. Live on air, Gutfeld dismantled everything. The smiles, the stage glances, the sweet little couple anecdotes. He called it out for what it really was, performance marketing.
Michelle Obama's new podcast is off to a slow start, ranked at number 34 on Spotify. In her defense, most people don't like her.
A marriage not of love, but of optics. The audience didn't know whether to laugh or gasp, because what he said wasn't just biting, it was believable. It made people re-watch the podcast, not to laugh with Michelle, but to question how much of it was real. Michelle says Barack runs late.
Michelle's spilling the family secrets, like how Barry gets on her nerves. Listen.
Barack, he had to adjust to what on time was for me.
Because he was on that island time.
Well, but, I've got this husband who's like, when it's time to leave, it's 3 o'clock, he's getting up and going to the bathroom. And I was like, dude, like 3 o'clock departure means you've done all that, It's like, don't start looking for your glasses.
Gutfeld says he's been running from reality for years, and if that was the only thing he said, it might have ended there. But Gutfeld didn't stop. He brought the fire, and it kept burning. And that's when the floodgates opened.
Michelle thinks American men suck.
Let me warn you, your rage does not exist in a vacuum. If we don't get this election right, your wife, your daughter, your mother, we as women will become collateral damage to your rage. To the women listening.
Because once you strip away the curated image, the cracks show everywhere. The podcast wasn't about sharing, it was about selling. A brand, a persona, a marriage designed for Netflix deals and book signings, not real life. When Michelle talked about Barack not being ready on time, it wasn't a joke, it was a mask slipping. And Greg pointed it out to the world. Gutfeld wasn't gentle. He called the podcast a sermon with background music, and the marriage, a scripted series, sold to the public one fake fight at a time. The Obamas weren't building a life together, they were building a media empire, and everything, even the tension, was monetized. Gutfeld painted a picture of Barack checking his watch, not for his wife, but for his next deal. He asked the audience, how many real couples fight about flight times while coordinating with their PR team? Michelle claimed Barack irritated her. Gutfeld laughed. That's the only honest thing she said in 5 years. That line alone blew up online. It struck a nerve, because for all the inspirational speeches, all the perfectly filtered Instagram posts, the truth felt more raw than ever. The Obamas are no longer relatable. They're a production. He didn't stop there. He dragged the entire concept of their power couple narrative into the dirt. While Michelle polished her legacy with every media appearance, Greg pointed out that behind the scenes, it looked more like two celebrities who knew how to coexist. For branding. Not for love, not for unity. For brand value. Even their anniversaries, Gutfeld noted, looked more like sponsored content than genuine milestones. If your wedding photo is hashtagged by 3 luxury brands, he said, you're not in a marriage, you're in marketing.
Rumors continue to escalate for the Obamas. Hopefully they can settle it like men.
Even the fights, he said, were rehearsed. He imagined the podcast production meetings. Let's drop in a relatable complaint. Cue the dramatic pause, and boom, instant headlines. Nothing was accidental. Everything was content. Everything was calculated. Even their tone was filtered, polished to hit emotional triggers just enough to get a reaction, but not enough to spark real scrutiny. The audience howled. Not with shock, with recognition. Because Greg wasn't saying anything new. He was just saying it out loud. Everyone had seen the staged nature of the Obamas' post-White House life, but no one dared say it until now. And once it was said, people couldn't unsee it. It wasn't just a political family, it was a PR empire, one that wrapped its influence in warm tones and soft piano music. They weren't just leaders, they were characters in a lifestyle brand, the so-called marriage secrets. They weren't romantic, they were revealing. They showed how carefully the Obama image had been built and how desperate Michelle was to stay relatable while living in a mansion, flying private, and raking in millions for saying the obvious, slowly. Every time Michelle whispers a complaint, Greg said, there's a boom mic, 3 editors, and a distribution deal behind it. He pointed out the hypocrisy in Michelle calling out everyday men for being emotionally distant while never acknowledging her own privilege. It's easy to preach struggle, Greg said, when you've got a staff of 20 and a chef who preps your kale.
Michelle Obama surprised fans on our new podcast by saying her pet peeve about her husband is that he's chronically late. For example, we're still waiting on him to admit he's from Kenya. And as for Barack's pet peeve about Michelle, he's mad that she keeps leaving the toilet seat up. When she cleans it. When she cleans it.
Greg mocked the stories about Barack searching for his glasses when they're supposed to leave. The guy ran the country, but can't find his glasses. Sure, sounds real. He imitated Barack bumbling around the house like a sitcom dad while Michelle rolled her eyes. The audience loved it, because the more you looked at it, the more absurd it all seemed. As if even their flaws were fake, carefully staged like bloopers on a DVD menu. He compared their podcast dynamic to bad improv. 2 actors pretending to be human, struggling to fake small talk, while a director whispers in their ears. Nothing spontaneous, nothing raw, just another episode of The Obamas, the franchise. Even their kitchen talk, he joked, sounds like a script that had to pass 5 lawyers and a brand manager. And the media, they swallowed it whole. Every smile, every eye roll, every staged anecdote became gospel. Every appearance was treated like an event. But Gutfeld cracked through the illusion. He made people laugh at it. And once you laugh at something, it's hard to fear it. Once the reverence turns to ridicule, the spell breaks. Media critics who once hailed her every sentence as powerful began to admit something felt off. Every moment Michelle sneezed was turned into a TED Talk. Every side-eye became a think piece. But after Gutfeld's takedown, the illusion shattered. People didn't see a First Lady anymore. They saw a tired PR act that forgot to change scripts. Even late-night hosts started chiming in, lightly at first, but the ripple was obvious. The untouchable image was cracking. And as the laughter grew, the defenses shrank. Her team, once eager to spin the message, suddenly had nothing to say. Then came the polling numbers. Michelle down 3 points to Trump.
Even if they run Michelle. According to a new poll, Michelle Obama isn't as strong a Democratic candidate against former President Donald Trump as many Dems would have you believe. In a hypothetical matchup, my favorite kind, Trump wins with 47% of the vote compared to Michelle Obama's 44%. I guess some of the kids whose school lunches she ruined are finally old enough to vote.
And Gutfeld didn't let it go. Guess those kids whose lunches she ruined finally learned how to vote. He joked that maybe Barack was late to the podcast because he was out trying to flip votes in Ohio. He even played mock audio. This episode is sponsored by Kale and Disappointment. The podcast kept going.
Heather, were you surprised that Michelle Obama is not polling better? Because I assumed she would just explode.
No, I mean, well, I would expect her to do better than Biden. I mean, especially she's of a younger age, I think greater mental capacity. And the way the border is going, I don't think you can get much worse. However, it is surprising that even among independents and as well as Democrats
But the laughs turned, not with her, at her. Michelle's idea of intimacy was a perfectly edited anecdote. Gutfeld exposed it as performance art. Her marriage, he said, had more camera angles than a Super Bowl halftime show. And each episode felt like a trailer for a documentary no one asked for. He imitated how even their arguments felt packaged. Barack forgot to take out the trash? Let's turn it into a memoir chapter. The line hit hard because it felt real. People saw through it. The illusion of authenticity was gone. Audiences stopped watching to relate. They watched to critique, and that critique didn't stop. Former supporters, once enchanted by her charm, began to feel manipulated.
A gay man. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. Tyrus. The men who are the real danger aren't the criminals or the illegal aliens. It's the guys that don't vote the way you want them to.
The ignorance that she projected as if the men are the only ones angry in the house. So every man who's been in a house where inflation's high, the electric bill's doubled, you're not getting cheers from the wife and kids. They're complaining, they're suffering.
It wasn't inspiration anymore. It was instruction, not encouragement, but command. And viewers don't want to be told how to feel by someone so far removed from their own reality. Others noticed the shift too. Social media threads that once defended her started filling with questions. Why is this so scripted? Why do these clips feel fake? Why does this marriage feel like a brand deal? And once those questions start, there's no going back. It snowballs. By now, viewers weren't questioning if Gutfeld was right. They were wondering why it took so long to say it. Michelle's brand relied on silence.
Have to use our voices to make these choices clear to the men that we love. Our lives are worth more than their anger and disappointment.
What's that pitter-patter sound I'm hearing in the background? It's the footsteps of Barack running to vote for Trump.
On no one daring to question her. But now, that silence was gone, replaced by Gutfeld's roar of laughter.
It's not one-sided. It's just the men are the ones trying the solution, and their solution is to vote for President Trump. And here's the thing, their women are backing them up. So take that little message, curl it up in a little box, and give it to Mr. Garrison.
And a public that started laughing with him. He was the first to poke the bear, and suddenly the crowd realized the bear was just wearing a costume. He joked that Michelle could blink and get a book deal.
But you can tell when she campaigns for Kamala, she looks like a bridesmaid giving a toast on her friend's 5th wedding.
Right.
Like, she knows this is a bad idea, and no one gives a The only thing she's missing is a Cosmo and the hiccups. Like,
she could sigh, and a network would call it activism, and get a book deal. She could sigh, and a network would call it activism. And when she talked about marriage struggles, the world was supposed to weep, but not anymore. Because Gutfeld peeled back the curtain, and what we saw wasn't oppression, it was production value. It was packaging. He reminded us how Michelle always claimed to speak for the voiceless, while charging 6 figures a speech, how she portrayed herself as fighting the system from the comfort of a Netflix boardroom. Every complaint was a monologue, every smile, a strategy, every public appearance, a soft glow lighting shoot with a dozen consultants, and worst of all, how she made her marriage part of that brand. Not just her husband, but the struggle, the fights, the imperfections, all turned into talking points, all rehearsed for emotional pull. Greg didn't say Michelle and Barack had a bad marriage.
Poor Tyrus, she can't run because if she were to lose to Trump, it would be the most humiliating loss in history.
Well, not just, I don't know if I think I said that and you added that, but we'll take.
You also said that I look great.
Listen, Republicans, she just kicked our ass. She's up 15 points. I noticed this weekend. I'm just going to speak on it. We can't play with a lead. Every time Republicans, we get a lead, we do something.
He said they had a good product, polished, market tested, audience approved. But real? That was never the point, and people were finally waking up to that. As the episode closed, Gutfeld dropped the final blow. He said Michelle's biggest secret wasn't about her marriage.
They know that they're having a hard time with men.
Right.
Doesn't seem like this is the right strategy.
No.
She basically says that they're hurting women by voting for Trump.
But I think they don't understand that where it comes from in the first place is that people are sick of being told how bad they are and talked down to, and you know,
It was that she turned her marriage into content. Wasn't about her marriage. It was that she turned her marriage into content, into a brand, into a campaign. And every time someone tried to challenge it, they were shut down, accused of being sexist or racist, or just not enlightened enough to understand her truth. And now that the mask is slipping, the whole thing is unraveling. The American public isn't buying it anymore. The laughs are louder, the loyalty's fading. And Michelle? She's still performing, but the crowd's looking for the exit. Greg didn't destroy Michelle Obama. She destroyed herself. All he did was hold up a mirror and press record.